Buffalo Association of Black Journalists, Burchfield Penney Art Center, co-sponsor of tonight's debates and providing this wonderful facility for us to use tonight. We're going to go right to the format. We're just running a little bit late, and we apologize for that. Our format tonight is 2-minute opening statements, and they drew lots tonight, and Veronica Nichols will be starting that out. They get 2-minute opening statements, 1-minute closing statements in reverse order. 2 minutes per answer, and if there is a personal attack, a 30-second rebuttal. Questioners can follow up. Our questioners on our panel can follow up if they don't feel the question was answered. The first question first to the first candidate. Second question, we will basically rotate who answers the questions first. Questions can be submitted from the audience for our panel. We have Rod Watson. We have Sandy, the beautiful Sandy White. Sandy, where are you? Hold your hand up. Sandy, there she is. Sandy, thank you, Sandy. Sandy has file cards if you have any questions to ask of the candidates tonight. She'll hold your hand up, she'll give you a card, fill it out, and then she will bring it to our panel members. Now, to introduce our panel members, on your far left is Veronica Nichols, who was a challenger for the 141st Assembly District. In the middle is the incumbent, Peoples-Stokes, who is representing on the far right is challenger Antoine Thompson, former state senator. What I'm going to have to ask you to do is, because we have a limited amount of time, hold your applause, and I'll remind you of that, because when you do that, it kind of takes time away from your candidate. Now to introduce our panel of questioners. To the far left is Eva Doyle, representing the Buffalo Criterion. In the middle is Harold McNeil from the Buffalo News, and on your far right is Claudine Newman, reporter with WGRZ TV. Been a long night so far. So with our first question, Eva Doyle will be asking the first question of Veronica Nichols. Yes. Sorry. Our opening statements. First, Veronica Nichols. I'm sorry. 2 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please forgive me for my nervousness. This is the first time I'm doing anything like this. But the reason why I am running, I've been a community advocate since 1999. And one of the major things that we run into as the underdog, as representative of residents and stakeholders in the area, is not so much big business or crime. What it is polluted government. It's true, polluted government. It's a wall that if you are on a ground level, such as myself, you can't penetrate it. And see, I live and I work as a community organizer in the medical campus area, primarily in the Fruit Belt. And unfortunately, we don't have any elected officials or even faith-based leaders that's willing to fight with us to prevent gentrification in our communities due to the UB 2020 expansion. Now, it's funny how everybody is congratulating themselves on this wonderful burgeoning development. And in theory and in a perfect world, it's not a bad concept. The problem is that residents are being pushed out. Residents do not have a voice. And the voice that they do give us is just an illusion. They invite us to these meetings and, you know, they study us like lab rats, and they give us the impression that we are actively engaged in the process. But when you look at the designs and when you look at what they actually do, our input does not reflect in it at all. It doesn't. So me, and anybody that knows me knows I can do some zany things. To me, this is one of the things that I'm doing. Because, well, the truth is that I'm already doing the work that our tax dollars go to pay our leaders to do. So in all honesty, I might as well just make it official.
Thank you. Our next opening statement from Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples-Stokes.
Thank you very much, Al. I want to thank the organization for pulling together this debate tonight. It's a great opportunity to speak to people about the issues that are important to the community. I am looking very much forward to returning to my position as a New York State Assemblywoman for the 141st District. I look forward to building on the seniority that I have developed, the relationships that I have developed, and quite frankly, the experience that I have developed. I want to move forward on the issues that we've already started to work on in this community, UB 2020 being one of them. And quite frankly, gentrification sounds like an ugly word, but it's not black and it's not white, it's green. And we need to make sure that everybody gets access to that green. And right now, there are some people in the fruit belt who are getting access to that green and quite frankly, taking advantage of it. Can there be more done? Absolutely. And I think that there's more in the planning with that. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at what they're doing with Open Buffalo, it's directly the agenda that they should have for that. So again, I look forward to representing you again. I have stood tall on the issues that are important to the people. You can see development around the cleanup at 858. If had it never been cleaned up, there would never be development around it. There are now people who live in that area. There are businesses that are growing in that area. And we want to continue that. We want to continue to work at Kensington Heights. One building left after $5 million. And after that's done, we hope that there will soon be a continuing care community there. I believe that that's what the seniors in this community deserve. I think that's what they want. And I know that everybody has no desire necessarily to move to the suburb for continuing care living. So we are still working on that. I want to continue to build on what's happening at the ECMC Hospital. 3 brand new buildings that really focus on the clinical needs of the people who live in that community and who fit the mission of that institution. It has grown significantly. We want to continue supporting that. So again, I look forward to serving you as your New York State Assembly member, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak to the voters tonight.
First, I want to thank God for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I want to thank my campaign team and volunteers for being here tonight as well. I also want to thank the association for putting this event on so that people can hear a clear contrast between the status quo and the change that so many people in this district desperately deserve. It's interesting to have the opportunity to participate in this great democracy. This district, District 141, over the last 10 years, lost more population than any assembly district in the entire state of New York. We are one of the poorest districts in the state, and I often say when I'm knocking on doors, Buffalo is the 4th poorest city in America. And if this district was its own city, it would be probably the poorest one in America. In some neighborhoods in this district, 75% of the men are not working and 50% of the women are not working. We need an aggressive advocate in Albany that's going to help put people back to work. I was involved with the medical campus when I was in the Common Council, when it was just really a concept. I supported the medical campus when I was in the state senate. There are 12,000 jobs on the medical campus today. Unfortunately, that has not created the type of economic opportunity to raise people out of poverty in the 141st Assembly District. It's just simply the trickle-down policy of hoping that people will get jobs simply is not working. It's not working. Even in the heart of the medical campus, what we see is severe health disparities right in that neighborhood. African Americans and others around that area are still suffering from some very bad health conditions. I'm also running because we have to fix our schools. In this district, there are over 40 schools in the city, 52 school buildings in this city. And of those 52, all but 12 of them are failing our children. We need smaller class sizes. We need before and after school programs. We need to make sure that we push for vocational education so even kids don't go to college, that they have something to fall back on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Our first question from the panel, Eva Doyle of the Criterion, and the first question to Veronica and Nichols.
Thank you. I'm asking this question of everyone who is running for office, and it comes from a young woman who I met this past weekend. She works very hard at a local business. She has 2 college-age sons, and she is so disappointed in elected officials that she stated very strongly that she will not vote. Here is her question. What will you do different if elected? And why should I believe you?
Well, one, I feel her pain because I feel the same way. Unfortunately, this city is not given many options as far as who they would like to see to represent them. Unfortunately, we've been brain trained to believe that we only have 3 choices. 1, vote down the party line. 2, vote color, and if neither one of those work, vote lesser of 2 evils. That doesn't give us many choices. And it's sad, but personally, I believe that people like me, okay, I'm talking neighborhood grassroots, everyday working normal people such as myself, who have a passion for their neighborhoods and who has dedicated their lives to the neighborhoods. They need to step up and run. They do. I hear this, oh, well, it's a 3-way split. I don't understand that concept, 3-way split. There should be 5 people up here. You know, who believes that they'll do a good job should. I've never been in office before, but I can promise you this, that I do have a track record, and my track record speaks for itself. And whatever I do, I carry it wherever I go. I'm a fighter. And if I don't have an answer for you, I'll find someone who does. But it's all about solution. It's all about problem solving. It's about doing something that is measurable, doing something that can be seen in the neighborhood. And I don't know what I can do different except be me. And that's keep fighting and keep coming up with creative ideas on how to engage the communities.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Assemblywoman Peoples-Stokes.
Yes, thank you. I would actually ask the young lady, first of all, what are her desires? Of all the work that's been done in this community to build the economy, to create jobs, what are her desires and where does she see herself fitting in there? And based on what her answer is to that question, then perhaps she needs to go to the BETC and maybe try and find employment there. Or perhaps she needs to go to the EOC, where there are actually 8 or 9 different specific certified training programs that will provide you with the training, certified training that will end you up with a job either in the medical court or somewhere else in clinical business, anywhere in the world. What exactly is she looking for something for her son that needs to have some training? Is there an opportunity for this person to go to Time Warner and apply for one of the jobs there? What is it that she needs? I do know this, just from door knocking the other day, that people kind of expect to have everything that they desire and available for them in the neighborhood where they live. And I understand that. But we can't put an EOC in every neighborhood. Quite frankly, the services that are provided there, via UB, there's not a campus in every neighborhood either, but there is an opportunity in every neighborhood for everybody to be successful in this society. There's no reason why people should tolerate less than that. But unfortunately, it's not going to come to you. You're going to have to come to it. Now, there have been many times when information has been given to a lot of people. So I would ask this young lady exactly what she wants. And I guarantee her, if she tells me exactly what she wants for her and her family, we will work that out because it is out there and it is available.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Peoples-Stokes. Mr. Thompson.
I think one of the differences was just stated. Years ago, we used to have a Department of Labor office at the corner of Broadway and Fillmore. We need to fight. We need to ask Governor Cuomo and the Commissioner of the Department of Labor to bring one back to Broadway, Fillmore area in the heart of Atlantic City. I want you to understand, we are one of the poorest cities in America. We are one of the poorest cities in America, and we need special consideration, aggressive outreach. Our young people need to be reached out to the same way probation officers and police officers and drug dealers reach out to our young people. The people with the services need to get out their offices and get out in the neighborhood. If we keep waiting for the people to come to the services, they'll never get them. Our schools are failing, and we know that people need training, they need education, and people need to get out the comfort of their offices. When I ran the Buffalo Family Training Center, the mayor gave me an opportunity. He came by that building twice in the 2 years, and I appreciate that. But the reality is that I told him when I took that position that I would make sure that I would visit barbershops and beauty salons, mail to the churches, go to block club meetings and community meetings. And whenever I did extra things that had nothing to do with my job, that I would carry job information and resource information to the people in the streets. And you know what? That's what these agencies need to do. And we need to put the pressure on people to open up a satellite office for BETC and the Department of Labor and EOC in the heart of the inner city of Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Next question from Harold McNeil of the Buffalo News, and that question will be directed first at Assemblywoman Peoples-Stokes.
Yes.
Scandals are not new in Albany or anywhere in the political sphere for that matter. But given the recent high-profile coverage of burgeoning scandals in Albany and the disbanding of the Moreland Commission on Corruption, recent polls still show a discernible lack of interest amongst voters regarding revelations of an apparent cultural corruption within Albany. Do you find this apparent lack of concern disconcerting? If so, why? If not, why not?
Actually, I don't find it disconcerting because of a lot of the reasons that we're talking about up here. People have needs, real needs, to meet the needs of their families and their children and the communities that they live in. And I don't think that what's important necessarily to the media is always necessarily important to the average citizen. So, no, I'm not, I don't feel any kind of discernment about that. I will say this, though, is that, you know, as an elected official, there's a whole different level of scrutiny that you get, and I understand that, I have that. But as a black woman in America, I've always had a different level of scrutiny. And so in a way, I think that people are more interested in how are they going to feed their families. People are more interested in seeing Albany raise the minimum wage, which I have voted for regularly, and as soon as we get the Senate turned over in the right way, we're going to get that bill passed. People are more interested in how to get access to health care and how they're able to take care of their children. They really are not as focused on the issue of the Moreland Commission. And with all due respect, you know, the governor set the commission up. If he set it up, then he ought to be able to dismantle it.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
I believe that the Albany does need to be cleaned up. I served in the Senate, and I served with people who were more concerned about being empowered than doing the right thing. And I think that the U.S. Attorney from New York City, he should clean up Albany. I was there. You know, I saw a lot of things that I knew that people should not have, and some people, we should ask them, show them the door. And the reality is that they never passed campaign finance reform. and campaign finance reform is extremely important. And lobbyists do have too much influence and power in Albany. And the people's voice is often muted on a lot of key issues. And so I think that Albany does need to get cleaned up. I think that the Moreland Commission should stay around. And I think that if they're not doing anything wrong, then they shouldn't hide from the Moreland Commission. And I think we do need to clean up Albany and bring integrity back to that place. I lost a close election 4 years ago. And one of the things that people thought was that, oh, Antoine did this and Antoine did that. 4 years later, 9 years in public life, I never got subpoenaed for anything. I never got invited to court for anything. I always worked hard to make sure that my constituents knew what I was doing and that there was never a question about me working hard in the best interest of the people. So I think that we do need to clean up Albany, and we need to make sure that the people, not the politicians and the lobbyists' interests come first.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Nichols.
Well, I find it interesting that we're discussing political corruption in Albany when we got it right here in the city. Seriously. Unfortunately, it's across the board, the way that I see it, and the way that a lot of people see it that I know. We see it as, how did I put it? We're recycling ourselves, okay? The government is recycling themselves. The funding that comes down, you know, from state to city, all of it's recycled. So by the time any of the funding get to the ground level, it's just a few pennies on a dollar. I mean, we're talking about payoffs and backdoor deals. I mean, all of the stuff that makes up this wonderful country. So my premise is this. Yeah, we need to clean it up. But I believe that, again, at the ground level, it needs to start. Because you can have, how can I say, the government can put together their own cleanup crew, so to speak. When their cleanup crew is just as dirty as the spot they need to clean. That doesn't distinguish for us. I suggest that there are independent and mostly made up of residents, stakeholders, of independent organization to monitor, because really what we need, and that is greater accountability as far as how our tax dollars are being spent. Right now, there's no accountability, there's no transparency. People are doing what they want to do. And when you talk about all of these monies coming in and all these wonderful things happening for our community, the problem is we could say it all day, but those of us who live with this, who wake up with it every day and lay down with it every night, we don't see the benefits. So yeah, we need to clean up home.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Our next question is from Claudine Ewing from WGRZ TV, and her question will be directed first at Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Thompson, you have said that you want to be an advocate for the people and produce jobs and produce opportunities. You had a key job as the head of the BETC. That's what they do. Why leave it? And if you lose this assembly race, have any promises been made to you?
First, my first question, answer to the first question is very simple. That I'd rather work for the people and not the politicians. As I stated earlier, I thank Mayor Brown for the opportunity to run the Buffalo Employment and Training Center. It was a great experience, seeing people come in there every day from every walk of life. Some women couldn't leave their spouse because they didn't have a job. Some men were fearful of being put out of their house because they didn't have a job. Some people were on the verge of being violated back to prison because they didn't have a job. We created a new ex-offender program to help 60% of the people that went into that program get jobs. It's a great opportunity, but The difference about the reason why I left is because that place needs an advocate in Albany. Someone that's going to push to make sure that when money comes to Buffalo, that people have to recruit at BETC. That doesn't happen. There are press conferences all over Buffalo about jobs, and then BETC staff and Department of Labor staff have to read about it. They need to be at the table so that Buffalo residents and residents of the 141st District know about those opportunities, and then they're not playing catch-up, they're on the front lines for the job. In terms of promises, the only promise you have in life is the promises of death. And so I believe in the people. The promise that I have is to work hard every day, knock on as many doors as humanly possible, and help people understand that the status quo is not working. Houses aren't getting fixed up. We got more money for condos and loft apartments with state tax credits downtown. So when people call their neighborhood housing agency, they gotta wait 1 or 2, 3 years. We need an advocate for neighborhoods. We need an advocate to put people to work. And I'm willing to take that fight. And I'm willing to take buses of people to do it the way RVE used to do it.
Give either one of the other two candidates an opportunity to comment on that question, and we can move on.
Well, I will say this, that, when there was an opportunity for that position to be filled at the BETC, and the mayor asked my opinion on whether or not it should be filled with the former senator, I said absolutely. He's a hard worker, he's going to make sure that something happens over there. So it's a little disconcerting to me to have supported him in literally everything he's decided to do in the last few years, for him now to be saying that, there's some issue with the way things are going in state government, one. And the other issue is that, part of the time that I've been assembly member, he's also senator. So the same issues that he's raising now as being a problem, if they're a problem now, they were a problem then as well. And so, I will add this, the legislative branch of government is not an individual government. You can't go there and decide what you're going to do unless you go there and build relationships with people who are going to agree with you. One of the things I have the unique ability to do is build relationships with people. I get along with people. It's not going to be all about me. It's going to be about representing my district. And because of that, I have the kind of support where I can get things done. And I just think that sometimes the political corruption is really in this whole divisive rhetoric that gets thrown out there, that this one doesn't have this. Everything that's going on in Buffalo right now is for every person who is in Buffalo. Right. It is for everybody. The point is that people have to take advantage of what's available instead of having someone telling them that this is not for you because you live in that neighborhood. This is not for you because you live over here. The waterfront is for the other people. The medical quarter is not for you, can't work over here. That is simply not true. It is available for everyone. There have been jobs created here, and every time there's a press conference, there's a person there or two that I personally know who work at the Department of Labor. So to suggest that they're not at the table, they are at the table. So again, political corruption not only comes in people's ethics, it also comes in this divisive rhetoric that goes out to create favor with themselves.
Mr. Thompson, I believe we should give you 30 seconds.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. First, let's let the record reflect that I have a lot of respect for the Assemblywoman. I was in the Senate 4 years, 2 years in the minority, 2 years in the majority. She's been in office since January of 2003, almost 3 times as long, maybe 4 times. The other thing too, the reality is that people are not working. They're not working. 7 young people got shot. 3 of them died within the last 2 weeks. I was in a group called Grassroots. I shared my concerns for many years about the fact that we had all this power, but change, transformative change, was not happening enough in the neighborhoods. And that's undeniable. If you look at Hurdle, which is in this district, and I like Hurdle, and if you look at Jefferson, it's the tale of two cities.
30 seconds, thank you.
Do I have 30 seconds since he mentioned? Well, I mean,
30 seconds, please.
I will say this, that Economic 101 tells you that there's a difference between where businesses will go and where they won't. Businesses are not philanthropic. They're in the business to make money. They're going to go to areas where there is a disposable income available for people to spend money. So why do they go to Hurdle? Quite frankly, they go to Hurdle because they know they can open a business and be in business. Right. Will they come to Jefferson? They absolutely will. As a matter of fact, if we're not careful, if we spend our time worried about being divided amongst each other, all the areas that could be a business on Jefferson are going to be purchased by other people who from East Aurora, Amherst,
Ms. Nichols, would you care to comment on the conversation here, or should we just move on?
Move on, they're doing great, just to
Thank you. All right, our next question from Ms. Eva Doyle, and that question, the first answer from Assemblywoman Peoples-Stokes.
Yes, many people in the city know of my concern about our children learning their history. Many years ago, Governor Pataki and former Assemblyman Arthur O. Eve met at the Michigan Street Baptist Church, and the governor signed legislation that would make it mandatory for all New York State schools to teach the history of the Underground Railroad. What happened to that legislation, and what can you do to help this become a reality in the schools across New York State?
The legislation was approved and it was signed by Pataki, and he never put a dime towards implementing it. Never, not one dime. Not only did he not put a dime toward it, neither did Spitzer, neither did Patterson, but I assure you in this year's budget there will be $3 million. Because before we left Albany, all of the African American legislators wrote a letter to the governor, including all of the African American New York State regions as well, insisting that that happens. People actually understand now that there is no way people are going to grow into their culture if they're not taught it. It's the reason why, as an assembly member, we fought to get the Michigan Street Commission put together. It's the reason why we fought to put $2 million into it so far and just added resources so that they can actually have operating dollars to begin to grow that district in the way that it should be. It's because we understand that African Americans travel more in search of their history than any other people because it was not taught to us properly in school. And so I believe, Sister Doyle, and I'm glad you keep pushing on this, is that at some point next year we will have regents who will come forward and say, okay, we have finally got the resources necessary to pull together the Amistad Commission to figure out how do we literally infuse every child's education in the state of New York with the history of African American people in this country. Because American history is our history. We created this country.
Right. Thank you, Assemblywoman. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, I strongly support funding for Underground Railroad Heritage curriculum. I was in college, a dual major in history, and also in African and Afro-American studies. While in the Senate, I also was able to carve out some money from the casino in Niagara Falls that goes primarily to a lot of suburban and city-related agencies for operations of that heritage area, which I think in Buffalo we've had a casino for a long time. When I was in the Senate, when we did the bill for Niagara Falls, I wanted to do a bill similar for Buffalo. The Buffalo money goes to the general fund. I'd like to see some of that money from that casino going to the Underground Railroad Heritage area on Michigan Street, and I hope you'll join me in that effort.
Thank you. Ms. Nichols?
Well, granted, I'm not as proficient in the legalities of this particular situation, but it stands to reason to me that African American history should be a basic part. It should be a part of the curriculum in the public schools anyway. Not just the Underground Railroad. To me, I think this is exciting because it's a starting point. But other history, you know, other than what the norm, and other than just in February. I just believe it needs to be part of just the regular curriculum. Because, for instance, what people don't know in the city too is how many African Americans really made an impact in the difference, and you never hear about them. One of them is my great-grandfather, Alexander J. Smith.
Right.
Okay? He worked very closely with Reverend Nash, and as a matter of fact, George K. Arthur worked for him. And he had 2 newspapers called the Empire Star. Both times they were burned down by the KKK. But see, that's a legacy, that's my history, you see. But see, these stories are not being told, and there's so many others. We hear the same old history teachings every year. And granted, these people are wonderful, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. But there are so many other people who have such great impacts on our society and has created, okay, these guys were innovators, but we don't hear about them. So I would personally like to see a standard curriculum of African American studies in our public schools.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Our next question from Harold McNeil of the Buffalo News, and the first answer from Ms. Nichols.
There's been a lot of discussion tonight about the development that's going on the waterfront and medical corridor. If you were to be elected, what would you plan to do in the Assembly to expand that current level of investment into the neighborhoods in Buffalo, particularly on the east side?
Now that's a subject I can talk about all week, but we don't have time. Well, currently, as far as the waterfront and even the medical campus, what we're looking at is development, the developer issues portion of this. Personally, I'm not against redevelopment because it's very needed in the city. I mean, this city is, what, number 4 as far as below the poverty line. However, it's how we're doing business. Case in point, with UB 2020, we look at it as a monster, okay? Because number 1, residents are not factored into the schematics of this development. Basically what is happening is, we again mentioned before, we're being gentrified out, but there is no protection. So what I'm doing now, and that will continue to happen, okay, is the fact that we are working on a community benefits agreement. The problem is that UB came up with the concept with Open Buffalo to do a medical campus community benefits agreement. Well, the issue came up with us is that you can't have a community benefits agreement without the community. So we are forcing the issue that we need to be part of that planning process and not someone from our community that they choose to represent us, but representation of our choice. Because the CBA is not just for that area, it will affect the entire city. And that basically is how these developers operate within our communities. And there's so much that can go into a community benefits agreement to protect residents, like gentrification, grandfathering homeowners into the process so that they're not priced out of their home, rent stabilization, guaranteed job creation. I'm sorry, my time up? Okay, but there's more.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Peoples-Stokes.
Well, I think the development that's going on in Buffalo that seems to create a problem for some people is a good problem to have. Because quite frankly, 10 years ago, we didn't have this problem.
That's right.
We were concerned about how we were going to grow an economy Well, now we finally figured out how to actually grow one, and it's kind of based on healthcare. It's based on clinical healthcare and research. We figured out how to use the university, being a huge asset that it is, and help it create an economy in Western New York, and it actually is working. I know some people who live in the Fruit Belt too, and they walk to work. They don't have to worry about where to park, they don't have to worry about paying to park. They walk. And the other thing I want to say about, how this development is working is that while there's at least 3 groups in the Fruit Belt, and some of them work with the university and some of them don't, and I understand that. The current council mayor and I try to work with them all. But here's one point that's real clear. Is while some people are waiting to figure out how they fit in, other people are fitting in.
Right.
And I'll give you one example. 41 Mulberry. Research scientists come to work at Roswell for 2 months. They stay at 41 Mulberry in a top-of-the-line, 10-star residence with everything you might want in an extended stay hotel in Amherst. You have it right on Mulberry, and you can leave the house every day and walk to work. You can come back and get your laundry done. You can have food brought into you. So some people realize how to move on the opportunities, and some people need help with that. And that's why I think Open Buffalo comes in at, because it can help you figure out how to maintain your properties. As a matter of fact, the former senator will remember when we literally sent everybody in the Fruit Belt a letter. Don't sell your house, and before you do sell it, talk to a realtor of value, someone who can help you understand that maybe you want to wait for a while. Or if you do want to sell it right now, maybe you want to think about waiting for another 10 years because the value is going to increase. I've been talking with the current council member about putting together legislation that will cap property taxes for people over a certain age limit who have been there for long periods of times. There's ways to make gentrification and the development that's going on in Buffalo work for all of the people. Those are the solutions that we're looking for. We have a lot of them already in place, and we'd love to put more in place. So if folks have ideas about it, let's do it. One other thing, Al voters, Buffalo Billion is about developing jobs. It's about enticing businesses from all over the world to come move their company to Buffalo. And quite frankly, they have been doing that. And the thing that's real critical about it, people keep saying there's not enough of it on the east side. Well, that could be debatable, but the east side used to be what's on the east side of Main Street. Now it's on the east side of what's on Fillmore, or the east side of what's on General.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
First, I think this is a good question that you asked, and I'm glad that we have this question. The first thing is I believe that we need Renaissance neighborhoods in the east side of Buffalo. When I was in the state senate, I sponsored legislation, what I call the Renaissance Neighborhood Initiative. If we can borrow money and use state tax dollars to tear down houses in Buffalo, we need to borrow money and use state tax dollars to fix up these 1- and 2-family houses in the inner city of Buffalo. We need to get the lawyers in the room and figure out how we can fix it and not let them tell us how we can't do it. Because we always can find money for the Roswells, the billions for the Buffalo schools, but something always happens when it comes down time to fix up the neighborhood. So I'm for the neighborhood. And there's a couple of things I think we can do. Number one, beyond the Renaissance Neighborhood Initiative, when you call your neighborhood housing agencies, number one, their funding has not gone up in terms of admin costs in about 5 to 6 years. Secondly, when you call Flair, Ellicott CDC, or Broadway Fillmore NHS, or Gloria J. Parks, or Matt Urban Center, people have to wait 1 and 2 and 3 years. That's just simply unfair. That's not right. The senior citizens are going through it. So we need to invest in this. When Arthur Eve and George Kay and Jim Pitts were developing the Ellicott District, they fought for money from both Republican governors and Democratic governors. And they got money for the Ellicott District. We need the same thing for more areas. Secondly, we need to make Empire State Development do on Jefferson and Broadway and Fillmore and Bailey what they do in Niagara Falls. In Niagara Falls, they have a development subsidiary corporation called USA Niagara. And they provide grants and low-interest loans for 3rd Street and Main Street in Niagara Falls, and we need to push them to do the same thing in Buffalo. Last one, the Buffalo Billion. I think the Buffalo Billion needs to have some job training money assigned to it, new money. because we need to make sure that we're not creating a permanent underclass in the city of Buffalo. All right? The other thing is that a piece needs to be cut out for the neighborhoods. All right? I was chair of the Environmental Conservation Committee. I was Solar Industry Association Legislator of the Year and Environmental Legislator of the Year. And so some of the things that they're doing in the Buffalo Billion is great for downtown. But you know what? We also need some great things happening in neighborhoods as well. And I'm willing to fight for money for the Buffalo Billion for neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Our next question from Claudine Ewing of WGRZ-TV, and that question goes first to Assemblywoman Peoples-Stokes.
We were talking about the billions to Buffalo. How much of it is coming to the 141st Assembly District?
Actually, a vast majority of it has come to the 141st. I can go through the list if you like. I have it right here. 30.
Come on.
Damon College, where they're doing the Empire Visual Effects Program, along with at the Tri-Main building, that's $4.5 million. As a matter of fact, I know quite a few people who are taking that course because we're creating a new industry here in filming. Burgard, Alfred State Middle College Program, another $3.2 million. The Workforce Training Center has not been identified the number of dollars for that one yet, but that one will also be on the east side of Buffalo. Liaison Corporation is on Scott Street. I want to say that that one ended up being like about 15 million. And by the way, they have a very diverse work staff. I've seen them. Scott Street is right behind the Perry Projects, which is east side as well. The Empire Genomics, which is on the corner of Michigan and Genesee Street. 50 million is going into the New York Genomic Medical Network, which includes UB, Empire Genomics, and a Manhattan firm. That is just to name a few. There are some dollars that are also going to a company up on Stella, and I can't really say the name of it yet because it has not been announced. But and I'm not sure the amount that goes into BAC, because I don't have that one on my list, but they're going to be at 425 Michigan Street. They're going to be hiring 125 people. They start hiring in September, and they're hiring people to put together tablets that don't call for a degree in engineering. It calls for a work ethic and a desire to work. They're going to train you how to put together tablets.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Peoples-Stokes. Mr. Thompson.
One of our greatest challenges that we face with the Buffalo Billion is the same challenge that we face with almost 40 years of the Community Development Block Grant and almost 40 years of Title I money going to the Buffalo schools. The money comes, some benefit, but the masses of the people are left behind. We need a vision for our neighborhoods that includes housing, that includes our parks, our neighborhood commercial corridors, these large number of abandoned factories in our area, with a united vision, not just piecemeal projects, and then hoping that people go to work. That we know after 10 years of investment around the medical campus that people still are not working. If you know 10 men of color and you know 10 white males or Latino males or women, you will find that depending on each of their ethnicities in this district, at least 40% of them, some 70% of them are not working. We must stop kidding ourselves. We must put people to work. When you're out going door to door and you're out talking with people, the number one thing that they say is that people need jobs. People need jobs. And the strategies that we're utilizing right now clearly is not working. It's not working in the university area, except for the most part. It's not working in Maston, Ellicott, Fillmore, most good portions of Lovejoy. It's good things are happening in some parts of Ellicott, but a lot of Ellicott still has well over 30% of the people living in poverty. And we talk about Delaware, some neighborhoods, they have deep pockets of poverty as well. We must have a vision and a leader that is willing to understand that we have made some progress, but we have a long way to go. People are dying in the streets. People are robbing and stealing from each other, and people are not working. We need to have a district that's on the move in every section, and one of those things about being on the move means people are going to work every day. So that's what I'm talking about. We got to put people back to work and to stop kidding ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Nichols.
Well, from my perspective, and the perspective of those who try to benefit from these services, really they're dysfunctional. We could pump all the money we want into an existing initiative. If that initiative is dysfunctional, no matter how much money you invest, it's still not going to work. And as far as job creation, one of the things I learned about the dirty business of politics, and that is, these jobs primarily go to those who have aligned themselves with certain political parties. You know, nepotism and, you know, political favors. Now, my thing is this. If this is how you're going to do, if this is the policy or the practices that you choose to use, and that is providing these jobs for family and friends and anybody that works on your campaign, at least match their skill set with the job description. There's too many people working these city jobs and these political jobs who are dumber than a bucket of rice. That's the dysfunction right there. And they could care less. They could care less about the people they're hired to serve or the job itself. Now, if you want to talk about job creation, open it up to those of us who qualify. Just like as far as on the medical campus, those jobs are really political jobs. Anyone like me who take a stand against the corrupt aspects of this stuff, we're blackballed. We're blocked. I could sleep at night, you know. But see, these jobs are not offered to anyone based on their skill set.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Now, I want to thank you in the audience at this late hour. We're going over because we also started late. All right. I want to thank you for your courtesy and for these were some very good questions. Right, this will be our last question. Will be asked by Eva Doyle of the Buffalo Criterion, and that first question will be directed first at Ms. Nichols.
Yes, one of my concerns has been disaster preparedness for our citizens. I know that people don't know what to do in case of disaster because I've done workshops and the knowledge is not there. As we are facing the winter months, what plan do you have to prepare your district for disasters?
Well, what's interesting about any pool of knowledge or information that's out there, it depends on your audience that you're targeting. Unfortunately, there's this mindset that people really won't move on something or even have an inkling about an issue until it's upon them. Now, one of the things I know, and that is the Board of Block Clubs and other organizations who have disaster preparedness trainers, qualified trainers, it is their job, and they do it willingly, to go out to block clubs and tenant councils and teach about disaster preparedness, but the people have to want to learn, and they need to come out to these meetings. And oftentimes, when these trainings do occur, you only get a few people because only a few people are interested. How you can engage other people and get them interested, that is a work in progress.
All right, thank you.
Peoples-Stokes.
Thank you very much. There was recently a disaster preparedness course held for the Board of Block Clubs, all Block Club members, and anyone who works in the area of public safety. I would submit that not just because of the winter months that are coming, but because of the condition of our world. Wars going on all over the place, and quite frankly, violence in most communities in America. I would submit that perhaps these disaster preparedness curriculums should be provided on a quarterly basis in every community so that people can get used to knowing what to do when an emergency happens. I agree with my opponent here that when you hold these things, it's hard to get everybody there. Unfortunately, I think if you have more of them, perhaps more people will get the opportunity to go to sit through one of these courses. It's not like an hour course. It's like a day kind of long program. They have a lunch in between, and they really do extensive training. And so I think it is probably something that should happen on a more like quarterly basis.
Good stuff.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, thank you. I agree with both of the panelists that we do need to sponsor more of these workshops on a regular basis. I have sponsored them and co-sponsored them in the past with block clubs, with community stakeholders. When I was on the Common Council, I started the Maston Community Stakeholder Meeting, which was a monthly meeting, which is still going on to date. In addition, when I was in the State Senate, I would sponsor these disaster preparedness workshops as well, at least once a year. When I get to the State Assembly, you can be certain that I will do the same and sponsor them on a regular basis.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Now, we have one bonus question that we're going to ask tonight that's by popular demand. And it's going to be a yes or no answer because we got to move on. That question is going to be asked by Mr. Harold McNeil, and I think the Assemblywoman, you can answer first, then Mr. Thompson, then Ms. Nichols. It's a yes or no, yes or no. We won't hold it against you, but it's a yes or no question. Ask the question, Harold.
Okay. This question actually comes from someone in the audience, and it wasn't initially phrased in the form of a yes or no question, but I'll ask it that way. Are you in favor of the decriminalization?
I'm sorry, can you start?
Are you in favor of the decriminalization of marijuana in New York State?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you got your answers there. So now
Yes.
we're wrapping up the debate. 1 minute closing statement, and the first closing statement from Mr. Thompson.
I want to thank the association for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to thank both of the candidates for a very lively and spirited discussion about the future of this district. I want to remind the participants and the attendees here tonight that we need to put people back to work. In some neighborhoods in this district, 75% of the men are not working and 50% of the women are not working. Every year and every other week, and sometimes 2 and 3 times a week, someone is being gunned down in the streets of Buffalo. And often it's because they're not working, they have too much idle time. We need to invest in our neighborhoods. If we can find money for condos and loft apartments and hotels downtown with state tax credits, which I support, we need to make sure we have a balanced approach to find that same level of creativity to invest in our neighborhoods for those single and 1- and 2-family homeowners. We can do that. We also need to invest in our schools. Our young people are falling short in education. We need an aggressive advocate, the way Arthur Eve was in the State Assembly to push for more vocational and career technical programs so that kids take advantage and say yes, and then college doesn't work out, they have something to fall back on. So I'm asking you on September 9th, vote for change. Vote for someone that's going to make sure we put people back to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Assemblywoman Peoples-Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. Balders, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to your audience tonight. It's a great time for me to make it real clear. I have been going door to door for weeks now, and on a regular basis, I hear that I have been offered and have accepted a job in the Cuomo administration. I have not been offered or accepted. I plan to fully run and win this election on September the 9th. I want to run on my record. It is a good record. There is one thing going on in Buffalo that I'm sure has a few people a little disconcerted. Things are happening without them. Things are moving forward without them. There is more money going into this community than has ever been in the last 10 years. And so I understand about us being the fourth poorest city in America. That's what they keep saying. But the fact of the matter is most people who work, who don't have either a college education and or some sort of certified training, they work, but they get paid minimum wage, and the minimum wage is too low. And so people are working, and they're still considered poor in America because they don't get paid enough. We need to increase the minimum wage. I am going to go back to Albany and fight for that to make sure that it happens. Not only waiting for the state to do it, but I actually want to get the law passed that allows local governments to make their own decision about minimum wage. So we don't have to wait for disgruntled politicians who don't think it's the right thing to do. I'm looking forward to serving you again as your representative, and I will work like I always have to continually to provide for the needs of the people that I represent.
Ms. Nichols.
Well, what you're seeing here today, as far as I'm concerned and running, is what I call political reformation. Seriously, we need an overhaul of our political system. And one of the things that we need, and that is greater accountability and transparency. When we talk about community engagement and residential engagement and how we should be part of it, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to be part of this burgeoning corrupt system, okay, by selling ourselves to them? Or are we going to make that sacrifice and preserve our integrity? Because anyone who walks in integrity and believe in doing the right thing and believe in telling the truth and believe in not making promises that they never intend to keep, you know, these people, we tend to stay on the outside of all of this, how can I say, benefits, you see. We stay on the outside of those benefits. So my reason for being here, again, is to set a precedent that people like me, okay, just an average everyday person, who have a heart and love for the residents of this community, will get up and run. And there are things that we can do in order to help ensure that even when we're having all this development, that the residents and stakeholders are not priced out. When we talk about the Jefferson Business District, they're already experiencing gentrification. And again, in itself, it's not bad. It raises property values or whatever. However, we need to make sure, okay, because that's the part that's missing, that's not built into this expansion, and that is assuring that the residents and stakeholders are able to stay in their homes. And instead of, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, I would like to thank you as an audience. You were great. You were great. You were attentive. We had some great questions. And now, you got to go out and vote. Please go out and vote in the primary. I think we should give our candidates one more big hand.